want to read you something written by a woman named Sue Monk Kidd, who has written a lot of religious, spiritual exercise material. She says, I took part in a retreat once in which the leader gathered the group into a circle and handed out 3 balls of colored yarn. She asked us to toss the balls back and forth to one another across the circle, each holding onto a piece of it. The result was a beautiful multicolored web stretched across the center of the circle. Each of you take turns and wiggle your thread, the leader instructed. What we found was that every movement vibrated the entire web. And it dawned on me, this immeasurable truth we were portraying. We are each a thread woven into the vast web of the universe, linked and connected so that our lives are irrevocably bound up with one another. I looked at those faces around the circle in a new way. The old adage, I am my brother's keeper, or in this case, my sister's keeper, melted into something new. I am my sister. I am my brother. And suddenly I wanted to gather them to me and do what I could to heal them and bless them and affirm to them how beautiful they are. Our lives are irrevocably bound up with one another. It feels like that today, a special day, all of us here celebrating Lola's baptism. I know many of these family members better than all of you. I've participated in a lot of their family events, happy ones and sad ones too, as a pastor. We feel on a day like today that the community of love surrounds Lola today. But what about the future? What will she find in her place in life? It's a dangerous world. And I wonder if that loving community will be something that someday she will think she cannot find. In fact, staying out of the community often makes people feel safer. Maybe it's better to be in an exclusive group, taking care of yourself and your family, and shunning everyone else in the world. Ensuring our own place and building our own security is the smart way, after all, isn't it? I think of the folks who live in gated communities. And every time I drive by, I personally feel offended. I can't just drive in there and look around, see what kind of flowers they have in the yard, see if there's a basketball hoop. Oh, no. Some of you would say, well, probably you should stay out anyway, but that's another story. Well, this idea of ensuring our own place with some status and building our own security is a similar dilemma for Jesus in today's gospel. The Pharisees asked questions to test Jesus, and we don't like the idea of him being tested, but the answers are important because Jesus' answer comes from his belief in justice and compassion and community. Like today, Tracy and Manny's marriage is a community event. When we bless this child, and we as a congregation promise our support whenever they would call on us. And every child who comes into this community, some of you grew up in this church. We've got founding members sitting in this congregation. And so this community has been that loving community. But what Jesus is talking about with divorce was an anti-community thing because men in the Jewish religion had the possibility of just writing out a paper and telling the woman goodbye. We've had enough, or at least I have. And so here's your bill of divorce, here's the paper, it's over. Jesus speaks, however, from his belief that life as God intended it to be would include equality and justice. And so when he adds this little phrase, and if the woman divorces the man, you see, that was shocking. That was a shocking phrase to them. What are you talking about if the woman divorces the man? That's not possible, because there was no equality there. And he says, if you're in a community of love and caring, there must also be equality and justice. This is important to the whole community. And we are, all of us, our loved ones, and everyone that we care about are part of this colorful web that Sue Monk Kidd describes. And after all, we can't ensure security Dangers are always present. No one is powerful enough to always come out on top. And the world is not fair. But in community, we learn to love and to forgive and to be forgiven, to do justice and love mercy and walk with God, as the prophet Micah said. This is what God intends for us and for the whole world. Sue Monk Kidd said she wanted to gather them to herself and to do what she could to heal them and bless them and affirm them. This too is what God intends. And so we have this wonderful picture of Jesus gathering little children. He said to people that people like these belong to the kingdom. They just come and want a blessing. They're running forward to him. I always imagine like the kids when they come forward for the children's message. Because kids want to be in the middle of a community. Kids don't want to be on the sidelines. They want to be in the game. I must confess I've been thinking all week about the community schoolhouse in Pennsylvania and the Amish children, the Amish families, and the tragedy of these senseless murders. I don't think anything has struck me, and perhaps the same is true with you, of this tragedy in that setting. This terror in such stark contrast. I don't know if you've ever been to Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, but you've gone into another world there. And it is a beautiful world, and a gentle world, and a sweet world, and a world that moves slowly. That's not to say the Amish, I agree with everything that they do or the way they do it, but they mean no one any harm. They resist wars. They don't serve in military. Their taxes are special taxes because of the way they live their lives. And the Amish way does even education very differently, because the Amish call the teachers out of the community. So if we were going to open a schoolhouse here, we would look out in the congregation and say, who should we have teaching? I'm not talking about training. We're not talking about degrees or anything like that. We would say, who do I want my child to spend all day with in those classrooms? And the training comes later. So the person is called out of the community to be the teacher. And the schoolhouse is their only public building because they worship in their homes. They are such a community that you would get a list every month and you would say, this week we're worshiping at Eileen's house, and next week we're worshiping at Mark's house, and so on and so forth. And that's where the service would be. They share everything. They are quaint, they are simple, they are hardworking. And we need people like this, not because we want to live their life, but we want to understand that it's possible to live more simply. It's possible to live without an automobile in some places. Not so much in suburbs. But some people can live without that, and all the stuff that we consume and all the buying and selling we do, we could do less of that. They're not like us in so many ways, but they are like us in the most important way, I believe, and that is in how they love their children. So therefore, their pain is our pain today. The pain of every loving parent of the death of our child is just the same, no matter what, I think. And in the horror of that story, it has been reported that one of the girls who died in the schoolhouse asked to be shot first, hoping that that would be enough for the crazy man and he would go away. The kingdom of heaven belonged to that 13-year-old girl long before that tragic day, surely. So what are we to say now to the Amish deep in grief? And what do we say to each other in this sacred place? What do we say to a world that is so full of danger and horror and injustice? When our children come asking us what can be done, with fear and confusion in their voices, and they say, "What happened, Mommy, Daddy?"